Hello everyone, this is Jordan from your EAE 130 class. I'm the architecture member who works with aerodynamics, and today I would like to go over the basics of Bash, just the fundamental commands that you will need to understand to run through these codes very easily. And then I will also go over my shell script for how to use geoprof and how to run it, how to couple it with xfoil. So a background on why I think Bash is really important and why Chateau kind of really pushes for it with his Fortran code is Linux is very important in the aerospace industry, and especially for an aerodynamicist, where if you were to want to run CFD at some point, everything is done in Linux because of all HPCs are done in Linux. So it's really important to actually know Bash, and it's a really nice skill to learn. If you're really good at Bash, you will never need to touch your mouse, and it's just really it makes things so much easier. So to start, let's go over to Bash. So because I'm using Windows, I use mobile xterm to access Bash. Oops. I like mobile xterm because it's so many more helpful things than like Sigwin. And it's also recommended by the University College of Engineering IT when you access their HPC. So let's start. So the first command I would like to go over is the list. So this lists everything here in the directory. You could do list-a, which is list all, and then I like to do list larth, and this gives me more information on what's there. The first thing, okay, you could also run clear to clear everything up, but if you scroll up, it's still there. So the first thing I think we should go over is changing your directory. So you would like to change your directory to where your codes are, where the Fortran code is. So the list, I know where it is. It's in my, I like to keep things simple, so it's in my desktop, UC Davis, and then Fortran. So then we can see everything here. One note is what you can do is you could do list dot, which means the current directory, or you could do list dot dot, which means the previous. And then you can also do list, let's say, if I list everything in this directory, there's a parent line directory, so I could list parent line. So I'm currently in Fortran, the Fortran directory, but I could also list what's in the parent line directory while still being in the Fortran directory. So this is particularly helpful if I want to go into, let's say I'm in parent line, but I want to see the polar data from xfoil, so I can list dot dot, so that's the previous directory, and my xfoil is in geoprof folder. So, and then I could find, let's say, polar tab, let's do minimum pressure gradient dot data. So I listed it. What I actually wanted to do was the concatenate command. So concatenate will display what's in that file. So if I concatenate that same thing, again, you can press tab to autofill, or double tab to see what things share the same name. So I'm trying to look for minimum pressure gradient. So I tab dot dat. I accidentally put an extra slash, so I concatenate it. So I'm in the parent line directory, but I concatenated a file in the geoprof directory. So now that we've gone over how to change directories and a few other things, let's just do CDs back to home. I would like to go over aliasing because I know a lot of students have complex directories that you don't want to always input every time, and or frankly, some of them you might not even be able to memorize them. So what I would like to go over is the .bash rc file. So if you list everything, list all, you might have a .bash rc file, and if you don't, you could always just generate one using touch bash rc. So this is touch this file name. And then you can edit it. I use the VI editor. I know Professor Chateau, he uses the Emac one, but I think VI is the most popular one, or VIM. And it's because it again has many more commands that make life so much easier. So let's go in here. So you can see I have two aliases set up. One, if I type in the word Fortran, it runs this following command. So it's change directory to my home directory. That's what this tilde is for. Desktop UC Davis Fortran, exactly what I just went over. And then another one is to open or go into my VS Code directory. So the nice thing about VI is you could look up online how to all the commands, but a few basic ones are O to go to the next line, and it also goes into insert mode. To escape insert mode, you would press escape. Now you're in command mode where you could run commands. So if I were to, let's go into insert mode using I. So if I press the key I, I'm in insert mode now, and I can now insert stuff. I can go back to the front, and I can, I'm back in command mode because I pressed escape. I could do things like delete the entire line by pressing D twice. For this, I could do, if you look here, it shows you the commands, the inputs you're putting into command mode. So I could do D delete to space, so I'm going to press space bar, so it's going to delete the alias because it's deleting to the next space. I could undo pressing the U key. I could redo pressing the Control R. Again, I want that though. And so let's set up a new alias to show them working. Alias, let's call it test, equals CD, home directory, desktop, FRUCD. Let's try that. I did not put these, okay, nope, that's good. So to save it, we're going to do :W for write, and then for quit, :Q. Now what you could have done is just write and then quit. And if you want to quit without saving, it's quit ! So now that I've edited the .bashrc, we can now source it. So this is running the script. So now it's run the script. So now all the updates I put in, it's now in the system. So I can now run that alias. So what was that alias's name? I actually forgot. So let's go back into, so press the arrow key twice to run those two commands. So I called it test. So if I write in test now, it should send me to the FRUCD directory. So that's good. So those were the most basic ones, things we need to know. So again, the reason why I recommend using VI is so you don't need to, when you're playing with the Fortran code, you need to edit the input file, the .data file, like the prantline.data, geoprof.data. And instead of going to VS Code or opening up a notepad, you could do it all in Bash using fancy commands, quick and fancy commands using just your keyboard settings or just your keyboard inputs. So I could go into Fortran, and we can now go over geoprof. So let's go into geoprof. So let's go over my shell script to run geoprof. So I'm just going to concatenate it. We can see that the first thing it does is it asks you for an airfoil name, and it prompts you for a name, so you just type in a name. It will set a variable. It runs geoprof. It generates backup directories to save your input files in case you delete them on accident or update them. And then a data file or a data directory. It moves things to the backup, and then it starts plotting. It plots it using a GNU plot, which Dahlia has gone over. But again, you have to make sure GNU plot or GNU plot is installed, and that's why Mobile Extreme is really nice, because if you're missing a package, it will prompt you to install it. And this computer is weird, where every time I close Mobile Extreme, it uninstalls everything. So I'll go over the install, how to install GNU plot and stuff like that too. So to run the shell script, you would do source run geoprof. So input an airfoil name. So this is going to be the name of the directory or the file or the folder that you're going to save all your files to. So I'm going to call this test2. So G-Fortran can be found, and it also doesn't have GNU plot or FEH. So I need to install those. So just going to run exactly what it tells me to, and I'll be back when it installs. So now that everything's installed, we can clear and list everything here. So we want to run geoprof.f and geoprof.exe. So the first thing we want to do is change our geoprof, the input file. So that's, I think, geoprof.data. So you would see I'm using the minimum pressure gradient distribution. Professor Chateau always mentions the quasi-Joukowsky one, which is 3, I believe. So we'll just go with that. And of course the other input files or input parameters. So I'm going to write it, W for write, Q for quit. So now I can source run geoprof.sh. It's going to ask, so it's going to be called quasi test. So it already ran it, and now it's plotting it, and you can see it's here. So this is what it looks like from GNU plot, and it outputted. It outputs a or Professor Chateau's code outputs a geoprof.xz file. So now we can actually run this in xfoil. Now, it's a bit tedious always going back and forth in xfoil. So what I would like to do is, in Mobile Xstream, you could open up new tabs. So Control-Alt-T to open up a new tab. We can go back into that directory. So that was geoprof. And if you're using a Mac, you don't need to do this step. But if you're using a Windows operating system, then you have to run xfoil using Windows, so in PowerShell. So to move into PowerShell, and why I like Mobile Xstream with these different tabs is you can use one tab to go into PowerShell. So I'm going to press CMD for command. So it moves me into the Windows native. And so what I can do is I could run xfoil from here. So I could just run xfoil. So I'm in xfoil now, and I could always quit. And I'm back in the PowerShell. What I would like to do instead is to automate it better. Is I could have an input file, which I called input geoprof.xfoil. So if I concatenate that, input, it's just a bunch of commands. This is the explicit command that you would write manually into xfoil, but just it's all written out in a .txt pretty much. So if I go back to the command, the PowerShell, I can run xfoil.exe with a caret. So inputting that, I put input geoprof.xfoil. So it'll just run. It'll run the output from. It'll take the airfoil generated from geoprof and just run it automatically. So you can see it's here. It also saves all the CP plots. This is something that Pixfoil by the previous TA for the aerodynamics class made, but I never really learned how to use that, and it might be better because Python can be ran in Bash relatively easily. So if you know how to use that one and know how to make that one more streamlined, then that'll also work as well. So now we have everything plotted. We can move back here, and you can see airfoil, airgeo. These are the CP plots, and there is a post geoprof script. So if I go into that one, post geoprof, what it does is it input airfoil name. This is the same thing we did last time. Generates it asks you for a variable, and then it's going to rename everything airgeo to that variable name. So let's see. So I'm going to source post. I think I called it quasi test. So now if I list everything's neater, and we have our polar data. So we can concatenate that. And so we have it. And this again could be then post-processed again to be put into parent line and then analyzed there. So next time I'll go over how to use the parent line script that I made. But yeah, that's all for now. Thank you.